a couple of bobos to go. White women. This chick is packing, and it ain't for lunch. I'm a full-blown meal, now this ain't no brunch. License to carry, not your good fairy. Work hard to provide, one day at a time.
Her name is Deborah Danielson. Her Twitter bio will tell you she is a reality TV celebrity, singer, author, businesswoman, and motivational speaker. But she is also a mother, grandmother, and rapper. While you may not know her as Deb's OG just yet, you most likely recognize her as the mother of tabloid mainstay and reality TV star, Farrah Abraham. So what is Deborah Danielson doing in a Wes Moast video?
I am here with Wes, and we're gonna talk, this is the Muse segment.
After months of silence on this story, Muse has decided to file domestic violence charges against me again, leaving me no choice but to speak out. And you wouldn't believe the number of people who had opinions about this case.
I'm a victim!
So to all of you asking me if the Muse story was done or if I was coming back,
people keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wes Moast!
And now, your boy, Wes Moast.
I know it's been a while since I've made any content, and there's a good reason for that. When we last left off, I was about to go to court in May of 2020 on some trumped up domestic violence charges that claimed amongst other things that I was abusive to my son. I limited Muse's ability to leave my home without me, which was an outright lie. But in all fairness, you can't spell Muse lied without use lie. So what else could I expect? After an initial delay because Muse was not prepared for court, a second hearing date was set for May 29th. On the big day, while I was anxiously awaiting my chance to defend myself against an argument so insane even the judge was confused, Muse was busy and didn't bother attending. In legal paperwork she filed later in August, Muse would claim that during that second hearing, she was busy on the phone with a specialist putting together a plan that would assist her in getting to a healthy weight. But on a second legal filing in October, she would claim she had been in acute care. Now, I'm no Lieutenant Columbo,
just one more thing.
so I can't say which is a truth and which is a lie, but what is true is that wherever Muse was, she was busy, making TikToks. These videos covered a multitude of topics, but were mostly about her. There was one about Chris Hansen.
I didn't go to court because I have 2 additional surgeries that may or may not help me continue living.
She talked about her hate mob.
Hey, it's almost like you didn't know that my feeding tube was broken, flipped out of my small intestine into my stomach, and now I'm in acute care.
Or the fact that she was now kind of terminally ill.
Which basically means that I'm terminally ill, but from chronic illness. So I hope you feel good. Hope that was good.
There was even another video posted which said, "We need to listen to people of color, especially in cases of police corruption," with zero irony.
Meanwhile,
I'm escaping human trafficking, and today I'm meeting with the person to get my belongings back. I'm a victim.
You serious?
Her failure to appear led to that case being dropped with prejudice, meaning Muse could not bring them up again later, and I walked away vindicated. The court never got to hear my case, but I imagine if they had, the 4-person singing jury they sometimes use in my state would have made the following verdict.
don't live with Muse, 'cause if you do, she'll you over, old or new. She found good folks and she tricked them. She said, hey, I'm a victim. All those stories turned out to be crap. Don't forget the Cash App.
Cash App, because jobs are for stupids.
Don't forget the Cash App!
It was June 2020. With the Muse story over in my mind, I took a much needed break from YouTube content. My year started with a very public doxing and feud with Vince Nicotra.
Man, that Vince Nicotra, man, what a jerk. The stuff he said to poor Wes Most.
And literally 3 months later, I was defending myself from human trafficking claims. Don't worry, because I will be taking a deeper look as Vince Nicotra finally faces justice for the months of cyber harassment and criminal mischief, but we'll talk about that later.
Hey, Vince Nicotra. Yeah, and I see you were arrested last week. Good! You deserve to get arrested, you piece of garbage.
On Father's Day 2020, I sent Muse an email. Something about the day and spending time with my son made me grow angry. If it wouldn't have been for me saving text messages, I could have been in jail for her trafficking claims. Even worse, who knows what could have happened to me in that parking lot while I'm standing there, surrounded by police officers and accused of a felony crime. After the lie was exposed and disregarded, Muse then tried to assassinate my character and profit off of our text messages before she finally relented and filed domestic violence charges, asserting that me telling my story was in some way violent and inciting a hate mob. A hate mob she herself was disappointed was nowhere to be found during her birthday stream just 1 month earlier.
I tweeted at Onision, and no one even responded. I was at least expecting the hate mob to be mad that I was using the term psychobrat, and I thought that I was hoping that Onision would at least respond.
I wanted to let her know how I felt, and also let her know that any grifting, e-begging, medical stories, or tales of trauma would never be taken as seriously as they were before because she had been exposed. It wasn't threatening. I made that part very clear, but I also made it clear that she was making her life much more difficult than it needed to be, and the one true obstacle in her leech life existence was the inability to accept responsibility, not just in a tweet, but in real life. I did not get a reply, but I honestly didn't expect one. I did a few more interviews in June with several individuals who are wanting to share their experiences with Muse. But by July, my mind had changed on the whole thing. What did I have to gain in releasing another video? My point had been made and my name had been cleared. Brittany Simon had returned to YouTube and tens of thousands of people had heard our warnings while we told our stories of crossing her path. I could have made a video debunking this TikTok where Muse attempted to prove her ailments with a self-reported problem list, but Rhea had already done that on her own channel. And as someone who has much more experience with that stuff than I do, she nailed it.
Anaclitic depression. That is especially an odd one, considering it's diagnosed in infants.
Would I just be piling on and bullying if I continued to make videos? During one of those interviews in June, I was told that Muse was in college and living in the dorms. This former friend of Muse was rightfully concerned due to the fact that she was now living amongst vulnerable 18 and 19-year-old students. With a number of former roommates and associates who had contacted me to share their experience of being lied to, misled, or accused of crimes, this was concerning to me as well. I bounced back and forth on what I should do and where my personal liability lies. Had any of the previous people who lived with Muse contacted and warned me, she never would have ended up in my home. I would never be dealing with this, but nobody did. There were no warnings, no traces because of various name changes, and no discernible trail. I went in blind and would later pay the price. If I were to learn later that an innocent student at that school had their life shattered because of false accusations, I would have always felt some sort of guilt for not stepping up when I had the chance. I contacted the local police officer fronting the extortion case against Muse and was advised that contacting the school would be the best recourse. In late July, I did just that and shared my concerns via email. I provided a brief history of my experience, some of the concerns I had, as well as my concern for the students on campus. The idea was not for them to take action, but to be vigilant and aware should any claims be made against a fellow member of the student body. I received no reply and left it at that. I could never say I didn't try. I didn't share Muse's location on Twitter or in a video or broadcast it in any way. I was done. The once burning desire to create content smoldered to a single flickering ember, threatening to extinguish itself at any time. But like anyone who has paid even minimal attention to Smokey Bear could tell you, it only takes a single spark to ignite a roaring fire. For me, that bit of flame was provided when in early August, I extended an olive branch of peace to Muse. I was officially retiring the Muse story forever and shelving the remaining videos provided we could have an audio conversation to clear the air. I wanted closure. I wanted an apology. I wanted to know why and how she had accused me of trafficking before, and then I wanted to put it behind me. I reminded Muse that due to laws in our state, I cannot record her without consent, and this would not be used for content. Again, my offer was ignored, but it didn't matter. I made the offer. Little did I know that 23 days later, on August 25th, Muse would once again file domestic violence charges against me.
Well, I see Muse is back at it again.
And yes, Muse was represented by a lawyer in this case, a proudly black-owned firm that uses all of the woke terms possible to describe their core values, yet represented this woman who had falsely accused me, an innocent man, of human trafficking, child abuse, drug abuse, and was now claiming domestic violence. Twice. A firm that had presumably seen her previous filings, the conflicting stories, and complete lack of evidence, and still felt like my black ass needed to spend another couple of $1,000s defending myself in court. My crime, of course, was describing my own experiences with this dangerous individual and sharing the stories of others who have contacted me as well. I never gave a location, I never gave her full name, or even her first name, nor did I ever instruct or ask anyone to wish harm or threaten her. Our Constitution guarantees freedom of speech, but without those videos, I would have never been taken to court. This firm may be proudly black, but what apparently matters to them is green, because they were also asking me to pay her legal fees. Yes, the perpetually broke one who on August 23rd was claiming she was too broke to pay rent and asking for tips, somehow found over $3,000 to pay for a lawyer, hoping a restraining order would stop me from being able to talk, being able to tell my story.
Here we go. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4.
Allow me to sidetrack for a minute, because it's unfair to talk about a restraining order without thinking about my boy Vince Nicotra, creator of some of the worst websites I've ever seen. September 2020 would be a memorable month for Vince, as he would turn himself into the police after months of denying he had ever done anything wrong. With a recent arrest for criminal mischief and a subsequent restraining order, Vince now finds himself awaiting a December court date versus his former employer, Chris Hansen. But Vince is hardly the only Nicotra who is tangling with Chris in court. Sister Frances Nicotra, a practicing lawyer,
and now I must be off in a flash.
is entrenched in legal warfare with Hansen, insisting that the negative reviews her business received after becoming entrenched in the online games of her brother were because of Chris Hansen.
I mean, and meanwhile, I have nothing to do with his gripes, simply just for having an association, whether it be familial association or otherwise. Suddenly now I should be banned, and here I am, not even in the digital community at this point.
What the man?
During a court date in mid-October 2020, lawyer Frances Nicotra became enraged that there was an online spectator during their Zoom hearing. This was an open hearing where any member of the public could attend and listen to the court case, but Frances wanted the person to either identify themselves or be removed from the conference call, with concern they were somehow working with Chris. The spectator's name? Malik Washington. Frances is clearly not a fan of Chris's work, or she would have remembered Malik. Perhaps better known as
the man in the SpongeBob jacket.
See, it turns out Malik and Chris had worked together before, about 13 years prior, while doing a show called To Catch a Predator. Malik showed up on foot because...
First of all, I like to travel, and then she
like to travel.
And when busted for being a predator, he uttered maybe the dumbest thing heard on the show.
Can you give me a ride home? Because I want to walk back.
I can't give you a ride, I'm sorry.
I had to walk back?
Well, that's up to you.
The case with Chris and Frances drags on while Vince waits on deck. With rumors swirling about misappropriated funds and more charges possibly forthcoming, what does the future look like for Vince? Here to give his personal opinion is actor, comedian, proud Italian, star of the cult classic film Windy City Heat, and newest member of the Cat G Studios family, Chicago's own
Perry Caramello.
Perry Caramello. Perry, thanks for joining me. How are you today?
I see Wes Moast here is one of my good old friends from a long time ago, and somebody I don't stay in contact with a lot, but Yeah, he is definitely my favorite black guy.
That's not at all what I asked, but I guess thank you. Perry, we asked you what you thought of the Vince Nicotra situation earlier in the week, and you had this to say in your pre-recorded statement.
What are you doing, hacking people's computers and people's private information for? You claim you're Italian. Well, you're not the Italians that I like to know. That's all I can tell you. You're an embarrassment to the Italian community. And I think you should go yourself and kiss my.
At some point, Perry did become confused and for some reason believed Vince had stolen his personal information, leading to even more outrage from Mr. Caramello.
My private information is none of your business, you. If I find out that you are giving out private information about me and my private life, go yourself. And I'll find the way to have the cops put you away. There's a lot of people that I like to see put away, but
the rest of the footage is mostly unusable as it's just screams and more profanity. Thanks for taking the time to share your thoughts, Perry, but can I ask why you did the video wearing what looks to be a terry cloth diaper of some sort?
Everything's dark these days. You can't do anything, you can't go anywhere, you're all locked up indoors. And then we got some loser by the name of Joe Biden who wants to become president.
Makes perfect sense. Thanks again, Perry.
Good day. Peace love out.
As I said, it just continues with the Nicotras as they compete to be the nuttiest family of 2020.
Oh! Good day.
This only guarantees that this Thanksgiving with the Nicotras will be the most awkward one yet, as the topics bounce from Vince's arrest,
ladies and gentlemen, we got him,
to the Franny Law YouTube channel, to their various court cases.
Hey, that's a great idea! For me to poop on!
And then probably back to the Franny Law YouTube channel because, come on, this is a joke, right? Now remember that both Vince and his sister, who I will remind you once again is a lawyer, accuse me of being the Gilgo Beach murderer because of a belt. So what does it feel like to have a loser and his Cher impersonating sister believe I am the Long Island serial killer? Well, to be honest, it feels like just another day in this ridiculous 2020. It's hard to pick my favorite stupid Vince moment of 2020, but whether he's lying about writing a book, contacting Jeffree Star in an attempt to set up an interview with his sister,
Hey, that's a great idea! For me to poop on!
or denying that he ever called me racist names while also telling me to shove things in my Vince was the gift that kept on giving. I can't believe that by New Year's Eve, it will have been only 1 year, 12 months, 52 weeks, 8,760 hours, and
525,600 minutes
since this hate-filled miniman first tried to claim I hacked his phone and started this whole mess in the first place. But let's not forget, his racist ramblings did lead to the creation of the nigga trolls, and now they even have a song and animated short coming soon.
nigga trolls, ooh, dress so snappy, hair so nappy, nigga trolls, ooh.
I have a video about Vince that will drop on New Year's Eve as Yap Yap and I celebrate a very special 1-year doxiversary. Now, back to Muse.
Yeah, this is Perry, the Scaremaster. Yeah, you know who I am, Moose. Moose or Mus or whatever the hell you call yourself.
After filing charges for domestic violence with the assistance of her lawyer, we began the first of 3 court dates. Court date number 1 was over in minutes. The lawyer had failed to file a notice of appearance, and they had also filed the wrong forms. These claims were very different than what was alleged just months earlier and should have been a red flag for the court. Muse cleared up the initial claims of child abuse against me by blaming it on someone else and then making up a new claim. She did the same thing with the original claims of trafficking as well, first claiming she called 911 out of fear and later saying the hospital directed her to call. It's her go-to move. If you can't tell the truth, cover it with another lie, but never, ever accept blame.
You're not being told the whole truth.
And here on March 6th, as she allegedly laid in a hospital bed after receiving what she deemed emergency surgery, she has a sudden realization that she has been trafficked and is also calling domestic violence hotlines, claiming me asking her to leave 1 month earlier than she wanted was somehow a crime. This was 6 days before I was almost arrested for human trafficking, and I had no idea at the time she was making these allegations. My first video about the accusations would not come out until a full 3 weeks later, videos she would use to file domestic violence charges again in May. But why would she have been calling them in March? Remember these calls to the domestic violence hotlines, because it's important later.
Hot take, bro. Hot take.
This time she claimed she quit sex work because of my son and was uncomfortable with him being in my house. Never mind the fact that she never did any type of work when my son was at home. While here she claimed she retired from it because of deity, and earlier it was because of RSN. And that one would be pretty difficult for Muse to refute. She told me about starting this GoFundMe about 3 days before leaving my house, and 1 day before getting the house rules for me with an updated move-out date. The GoFundMe was titled Leaving Adult Work and was all about the abuse she suffered at the hands of YouTuber Realstream News. When RSN embarked on his own mission to out Muse as dangerous and manipulative in the fall of 2019, how did she respond? By quitting adult work and calling the FBI on RSN so many times they actually called him to warn him about Muse. She would also visit the police department in Georgia several times, expecting them to take action against him because of YouTube videos. She has had about 100 aliases, but let's be honest, she's really just Karen.
Hi, Karen. Nice seeing you.
This is the same person who made dozens of videos attempting to quote-unquote warn the community about what she called predatory behavior by Brittany Simon, but as soon as the spotlight is turned on her, she uses the law and his sickly backstory to her advantage. Realstream News was the one person who tried to warn me about Muse prior to her moving in. But she had successfully painted him to look like another one of her abusers with a story that could not be backed up or verified. The video he shared of her allegedly kicking her dog was not a leaked cam show, and Muse was fully clothed. This is not the only thing that constantly changed throughout these filings, but it's such a silly thing to lie about over and over again. This is most definitely not the behavior of an advocate and role model. These are the actions of someone who has an adverse reaction to keeping a story straight.
Liar, liar, plants for hire.
She has retired more times than Brett Favre, and judging from her recent tweet where she brags about making over $10,000 in a year for the first time in her life, she should stay retired and find another side hustle.
Need a side hustle. Why you making trouble? I'm not good with the rock, you just burning rubble.
That is not an indictment on low-income earners or adult work. I have worked in digital marketing for years, and I got my start working behind the scenes for adult cam, video, and dating websites, an area I still consult in today. But $10,000 per year is not a lot to make annually doing this full-time for someone who's claimed to be in the industry for 7 years. It didn't matter though. In this version of the story, it was someone else's fault that she was leaving this lucrative career behind.
Honesty. Pass it on.
I was once again being accused of inspiring that hate mob.
I was at least expecting the hate mob.
And doxing her on Twitter, which is hilarious considering I hadn't tweeted in months prior to the latest temporary order of protection, and no proof of that was provided.
Tell the truth is cool. Tell the truth is cool. Tell the truth is cool. Tell your mama and your daddy and your friends at school.
Court was rescheduled for October 8th, and Muse and the lawyer were forced to refile. On October 5th, 2020, I received that new paperwork. And yes, the story had changed again. Muse was now back to saying I limited her ability to leave my home and contact people, despite the mountains of evidence that prove otherwise. At no time during her conversations with Kat did she mention she was being controlled. Actually, she said just the opposite and complained about me ghosting her and not spending time with her. She told that same friend I had tried having sex with her and she rejected me, leading me to ask her to leave. Now, this was the same story she would echo on that 911 call a few weeks later when she said she was escaping human trafficking.
I came back from my emergency procedure and then got kicked out when I wouldn't be intimate with my roommate. And so he's been holding you against your will? No. He traveled me across the entire country and then decided to get rid of me when I wasn't going to have sex with him.
Oh, did you leave or were you kicked out? Blah, blah, blah. Inconsistencies.
I'm a victim!
But now, those trafficking claims were nowhere to be found. She said our relationship was sexual, and one of her supporting statements to prove that was that I was in possession of her adult videos. A claim that is not true, but even if it was, does that mean that everyone who was on her OnlyFans, purchased from her many vids, or spent time with her on a campsite is also in a sexual relationship with her? But again, I question how we had a sexual relationship when on March 12, 2020, she clearly told the 911 operator she fled my house because I kicked her out when I realized she wasn't going to have sex with me. So we had a sexual, non-sexual relationship?
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Her proof of me being controlling was a page of house rules she said were also sexual in nature. Now, call me crazy, but none of these things were sexual, and in fact, they were the complete opposite. This is the least sexy list of rules since the how to play poker card that appears in most standard decks of playing cards. Maybe it's all in the presentation though. So here to give the sexiest interpretation possible is the star of the upcoming off-Broadway musical Mary Poppins.
When you poop on the floor, clean it up.
I think Leo.
When you poop on the floor, clean it up.
Clobbering time.
Clobbering time!
Girl, anything that gets pee on it needs to immediately go into the washing machine.
That one was pretty sexy.
If there's the last of something, baby, please ask before you take it. Unless, of course, you purchased it.
Damn. That was also pretty sexy.
I'm hiring the weekly housekeeper again, girl, to clean the house top to bottom. The guest bathroom will be cleaned out, and from then on, you'll be moved to the guest bathroom. I want to keep my room off limits as a private place.
Okay, so maybe they are pretty sexy on the reread, especially the ones about cleaning up dog pee. Maybe I had unknowingly penned the most sensual letter of basic instructions you never thought you'd have to give to another adult about how to live amongst people, but you can't blame me for that. But hold on, because it got even wilder on attempt number 2 for court on October 8th, 2020, when the story was changed on the fly.
Our story has never changed.
Oh no, but it did. See, in the span of a few months, the story had changed from me kicking her out for refusal to have sex.
That's not important. It's not important. You guys are missing the huge point of, like, the fact that the connections here. The connections, my dude. The connections. Sex work. Moved across the country. Kicked out when sex wouldn't happen. Like,
to saying in September we had a sexual, intimate relationship.
Our story has never changed.
Hold on, I'm building up here.
We're building up here. Do you feel me? We're building up.
Because now, when the judge asked her to explain the nature of our relationship, she claimed we were in a paid, sexual, working partnership.
Don't forget the Cash App!
Just to be clear, she was now claiming that I flew her all the way from Georgia to be my live-in, paid, sexual companion, which is illegal. On top of that, I guess I was also searching for someone who claimed she had sepsis while dealing with a long list of ailments and a feeding tube. And let's not leave out the fact that Muse was proudly asexual, but here's my real question, and stay with me here. If we were in this imaginary paid sexual relationship, and she chose to leave because she didn't want to have sex, wouldn't that be a failed business deal?
You're not being told the whole truth.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious. So, of course, this makes me think about that earlier text message. What was her reason for calling the domestic violence hotline on March 6th, allegedly from that hospital bed? She admitted there was no violence, there were no threats, and all of our communication was amicable. Up until that point, she called 911 on me. What was the part that was so illegal? Was it when I helped her pay for a plane ticket, took her into my home rent-free, or when I rehired my weekly maid without discussing it with her first?
So confused about, oh, did you leave or were you kicked out, blah, 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 inconsistencies.
It doesn't fit, and there will never be an explanation because the story has changed too many times for her to begin to follow. But I can follow the pattern. When her ex wanted to break up and asked her to move out, she filed domestic violence charges and got a restraining order, asking for a 5-year order, which was denied, but getting a 1-year order despite no evidence. When RSN was trying to out her on YouTube, she called the FBI and the police several times. When Brittany Simon made a video on her own channel discussing the truth behind those earlier lies told by Muse, Muse even threatened her with legal action, but cannot follow through because she doesn't know where Brittany lives. When I wanted Muse to leave my home earlier than she wanted, she was going to make me pay by involving the law or police in any way she could. That's why she was already threatening me with court after that night in Chehalis when I let her know I would not be paying her move-out money. This was and always has been about revenge, and her inability to admit that should be concerning for anyone who has to deal with her in person.
Remember, we're a pathological liar.
I don't think anyone's going to forget that.
Screenshot that. Use it in your next video. I don't care anymore.
I gave her a move-out date, and she left earlier than proposed. So then why would she later contact the police and claim to be escaping human trafficking? If she was flying here to be my willing and paid sexual partner, how do you explain that? Which one is the lie, because these stories are all very, very different. The judge asked Muse again if we had an intimate dating relationship, and she could not answer. Muse maintained we were in that paid, sexual, working relationship. An illegal working sexual agreement that a family court was being asked to rule on. Court ended soon after due to time constraints, and a final hearing date was set for October 20th. The third and final court date was when things really went off the rails. On October 20th, Muse opted not to testify, instead crying and accusing me of discrimination for questioning her ailments. But it didn't matter, because the judge had already made her mind up before court began. After 30 minutes of testimony from both sides and closing arguments, the judge made a shocking ruling. The court sided with Muse and found it credible that Muse was terrified because of the email I sent. But no, not the email to her. When I sent that earlier email to the school where Muse lives to provide a warning and express concern, what action did they take? Did they consider the evidence presented and hold on to it in case anything came up? No. They gave the correspondence to Muse, identifying the person who was making these claims. Think about that for a minute. Had our sexes been reversed, do you think things would have gone the same way? My desire to warn this institution, to potentially protect the next victim, was my downfall. It didn't matter that Muse had called the police on me and lied about being trafficked, later filed domestic violence charges, constantly changed stories, and put me at risk of arrest or worse in that Chehalis parking lot in March. The court once again sided with the sickly crying girls, and her claims of "I'm a victim" were temporarily validated. It's not lost on me at all that her restraining order against her ex, Christopher, that she proudly waved around as a proof of victimhood just a year ago, expired less than a week before she filed these new charges against me. Muse requested and received a 2-year order of protection. 24 months in which I can't contact or go within 500 feet of a person who lives 150 miles away and who I have no interest in ever speaking to. This is a slap in the face to real, actual victims of domestic violence who struggle to get the assistance they need, while someone like this can abuse the court system over and over again and make charges stick on what was nothing more than an attempt to warn administration. I was ordered to pay $2,500 in legal fees, while the person who made false felony charges against me and then attempted to extort me with threats of legal action should I not pay up, walked away scot-free. Speaking about Vince Nicotra, it took months and months of gathering evidence for him to finally come to justice for what he had done. For me, it took one email. But the story will live on this channel, other channels, YouTube and beyond. The story of the YouTuber who accused me of everything and anything while her own story melted and dissolved into a cascading cesspool of lies will remain. For good. The only thing this incident proves is that the system is broken and no amount of woke politics will fix things. It's only going to make things worse. It's one thing to believe victims, but it's another thing to embolden and empower the people who wear the victim label as if it was another item on an ever-growing list of achievements. I appreciate all of you that have reached out to me on Facebook and Twitter and offered to donate or asked about a GoFundMe. I'm good on the money, but there is a way that anyone watching this can help. Talk about it. For every $1 you are willing to donate to assist with my legal cause, share this video or talk about it with one person, because the story is important. My life could have been completely unraveled by encountering Muse, but I wasn't going to let that happen. I'll take one on the chin with this basic order of protection I have zero interest or intention in ever violating if it proves the lengths this person is willing to go to inhabit a state of perpetual victimhood. But the last thing I considered when I opened my home to Muse, rushed her to my state for emergency surgery after a sepsis scare, was that 8 months later, I would be looking at an order of protection for domestic violence for sending an email. It only took a little over 2 weeks, half a month, just 16 days to completely alter the course of one's life. And speaking of 16, let's get back to Deb's OG.
I'm back. Guess who?
Who was introduced to America on an episode of MTV's 16 and Pregnant.
I don't hear opinions from DMs that never reach me. We don't recognize you from a single show on TV.
Deborah Danielson and I bonded over the course of a few days while discussing our experiences with being scammed online.
You say to yourself, oh, what does Deb's OG or Deborah Danielson know anything about scammers? Well, I wrote a book. It's called Vapor. I too have fallen prey to being scammed. And so I'm here today to encourage people, along with Wes, that doesn't have to earn you a badge of dishonor, and you don't have to feel ashamed, and you don't have to feel discouraged.
In my case, it has cost me some aggravation and a few $1,000s in legal fees. But in Deborah's case, she lost a small fortune and so much more. After writing a book that I linked in the description, she became an advocate for victims of scammers, fraudsters, and cons. In my next Muse video, where I share the story of two of the men who are arguably closer to Muse than anyone, Deborah will offer tips, insights, and of course, her opinions and thoughts on my case. We will also be doing a standalone video about how she was ripped off for $250,000 by a man she met on Match.com and how it changed her life today. Because you never think it could happen to you until it does.
So, God bless. Stay tuned. Scammer episode up and coming.
So as season 1 with Wes Moast wraps to a close, what's in store for the rest of 2020 and beyond?
And now, preview time.
You wanted more? Well, season 2 with Wes will be the most explosive season yet. We start things off with Vapor, the Deborah Danielson story. Continue with 2 highly anticipated Muse interviews, the return of true crime analysis, a visit with Chris Hansen to close out the Muse saga, and backed by popular demand, Wesame Street.
Wesame Street was made possible by a generous grant from twin toilets' best friends, Mom's Cancer.
Now, let's talk about collaborations. There are plenty of returning faces, like Clobbering Time.
Clobbering Time? Take that f***ing paper bag off your head!
Yap Yap.
Hey everybody, grab a barf bag and let's get this party started.
Tiffany Lockhart.
Tiffany Lockhart!
and Joey Teacap.
Cheesy but not too gooey.
But look for all new videos featuring Winnie, the New Zealand Receipt Queen, newcomers Alpha Male Derek, The Lorne Identity, Eurofission, Mr. Peanut Butter, Weird Geordie, Hollywood actor Scary Perry Caravello.
It was on the street, downtown Palm Springs, back in the early 80s. I farted and the fart turned into a turd. And I didn't want to stop and cut off the turd while it's coming out my asshole.
And more.
Moast. His name is Wes Moast.
This will be another can't miss exclusive from your boy, Wes Moast. So don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to ring that bell. And for the sake of all that is holy,
don't forget the Cash App.
That's it for me.
Your boy.
And my favorite black guy, Wes Moast.
And I'm back. Bitch.
And this is how we know it best. This is salt.
I dream of genie bottles, guys. You now know a little something more about me.
Learn how to shit in the toilet, you pig. Capiche?
For me to poop on.
Want more Moast? Subscribe or click the video above